Okay, great. Good evening, everyone here and those of you joining online. We always have a couple of people from other countries joining. And just in case I wonder if they're here, I get notes from them tomorrow about the class, which is really quite wonderful, actually. Several great souls. So hello to you from around the world. Yeah. So let's begin with a prayer. Then we will listen to Dambara sing tonight. Then we'll have a brief meditation. Then we'll start the class. Okay. So, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, we humbly bow before you all. Divine Mother, great masters, draw us inward. Help us to remember in all of our endeavors that we live in this world, but our effort is to not be of the world. Help us to transform all desires that would exist in this physical plane, that are related to this body, into one desire to know thee and to love thee, to see thee everywhere, and to bring our souls into oneness with thee. Om Shanti. Amen.
I've passed my life as a stranger, Lord, roamed far in foreign lands, far, Lord, far too far. Only he who knows he's far from home, only he, Lord, understands. Only he who knows he's far from home feels the earth and understands. Sometimes a stranger did take me in, then love I thought was near. Love, Lord, where is love? As the winds upon the desert sand whisper hope, then disappear. As soft winds breathe on the desert sand, so love sighs, then disappears. Sometimes a child laughed, and I did pause, and dreamed of joys at home. Joys, Lord, only a dream. For what joy is there without your smile, empty like the ocean foam. For what joy is there without your smile? You're the sea, all else is foam. How long must I be a wanderer, Lord? You know where I belong. You know, Lord, yes, you know. Home is where my Lord's sweet presence is. I've grown tired of strangers' songs. Home is where my Lord's sweet presence is. Bless me that I hear your songs.
Let's meditate together now for a few minutes. Really meditate with the energy, the vibration of this beautiful song. Maybe when we're done, we'll go over the words stanza by stanza. But the whole song, just a constant reminder that nothing in the world is real, that the only thing that's real is our oneness with God, our soulful connection, and everything that is that would bring us back to that one truth. Om, peace, Shanti, Amen. I was just, my mind just went so many places, so many thoughts coming in as I was sitting there for a couple of minutes. Pooja, would you get my computer out of that and just bring me the computer? I do want to go over the words to this song. The first thought that I had is that, thank you, and many of you have heard me say this before, but for those of us who have been around Swami Kriyananda for some years, got very used to the fact that there were many, many times where you could be with him 7 nights in a row. And again, I know some of you have heard me say this. And he would tell the same story 7 nights in a row with absolutely no apologies. He didn't say, I know I told this story last night. He would tell this story like you were hearing it for the very first time. And when that first happens, my first years with him, you think, why is he telling me this story again and again and again? Until your own energy is uplifted, expansive enough that you begin to realize that he was such a, and it's the same thing's true about Yogananda, actually. And I'll come to that just in terms of trying to research this topic of desires, which is what the secret is. But anyway, that he was telling us the same story over and over and over, not because he needed to tell us the story, but because there was something so essentially meaningful in that story, something so essential to our own spiritual growth and development on this path that we could never hear the story too many times. So I could say to almost all of you in the room, how many times did we hear this story? I read the AY in New York. I caught the next bus to LA. I read the book in 3 days, caught the next bus, went straight out to Los Angeles, and the first words I said to Master were, I want to be your disciple. Now, you hear that story once, you think you've heard the story. But over our own spiritual growth and development, we realize that every time we hear the story, we can go deeper and deeper with it. That what is it about being a disciple of a great master, of bringing everything that we have, all of our energy, towards wanting to be the disciple of a great master? If we only told ourselves that story ever, I mean, it would be a wonderful lesson for us on the path. There's many stories like that. Many times the same stories, or I remember in the last couple of years of Swamiji's life, and it was a couple of years, almost every night that he spoke, he would end his talk by singing Peace, his song, Peace, that he wrote. Almost every night, until you start saying, wait a minute, let me listen to this song. Let me listen with my heart and feel it. I'm saying this to you because when I started to look through our literature about using the word desire as a search, and I'll tell you why, because tonight's secret is about desires and what we do with them. Anytime that Yogananda talks about desires in the library, in this vast accumulation of his lectures, his books, his words, if you find the word desire, other than in his poetry, he explains to us again and again and again. I have pages of it. I just looked down and I thought, these pages all say the same thing, everything I printed. So again and again, Master says to us, desires are of the ego, mostly, most of our desires. Of course, that desire to know God is a desire that we want to hold on to and embellish. But as a rule, he's saying, and he talks over and over about the yugas, about what it means to live thousands of years. Why do we keep coming back? Why are we constantly reincarnating? And he just says, in as many ways as I have pages here and more, many more, we have to keep coming back until we rid ourselves of all of those desires that are of the ego. that whatever desires we leave with, whatever they are, we will have to come back. That the desires that were born in relationship to a human body, and remember what Master said, the ego is the soul identified with the body. So of course, as soon as we're born into a human life, we have to have an ego. By definition, by his definition, the soul identified with the body. So we have this ego, and unless and until we practice and practice and practice, we meditate deeper and deeper. We keep being willing to hear the same stories, to read 10 pages in as many different ways about the yugas and about reincarnation and about the why of reincarnation, and begin to be able to recognize every desire that we have, every one of them, as being yet another way of manifesting our soul's longing for God. It doesn't look that way to us so easily because we don't live moment by moment in terms of our soul's reality. Everybody sitting in this room comes back to that. We talk about it, we teach it. We say, of course, we have to live in terms of our soul's reality. That's what a spiritual path is like. But mostly, day by day, we forget, and then we come back, and we forget, and then we come back. Not day by day, honestly, often, moment by moment. And so we have to just keep reminding ourselves, and we have to say that, these are Master's words, he says, every desire, no matter how small, will form a link of energy to this world. Every desire, no matter how small, will form a link of energy to this world. Strings can be severed, but energy links can only be evaporated or transformed. So that to let go of each desire means that constant transformation of energy that really, in the end, only happens through meditation. I mean, it'll work through chanting. Master himself said chanting's half the battle. There's many ways, satsang. We talk about those same things all the time. I'm not going to just mention them all again. They all loosen the threads that are holding us. But Swamiji says, after he quotes Master saying that, I have to, James, could you just cut my mic for Let's try this. As soon as I turned away, I was losing the mic. Swamiji said, I once asked my guru, even so simple a desire as a wish for an ice cream cone. He asked him that literally, will that mean that I'll have to come back, satisfy that desire? Because every desire will need to be satisfied or transformed. And we all know that satisfying a desire doesn't really get us anywhere, because we satisfy one desire. That feels good at the human level. We develop more desires. That's just what happens. And I can read you that later from the Gita if we ever get back there. So that was compelling. I remember Swamiji said to Master once also, is every single thing dictated by past karma and by our need to transcend, again, every desire, because that's basically what's making us up as a physical form. Every single desire needs to be satisfied. Master said every one and everyone's dictated. And Swamiji said, here he's asking about the ice cream cone. One other time he said to him, are you telling me that even the tie that I put on every morning is ruled by some past karma? And karma really having to do with desires. So it's remarkably important for us to be willing to hear these same teachings over and over, because that's how we grow through them repeatedly. Okay, let's try this one. So this constant reminding ourselves that we will keep coming back as long as there are any desires. And more importantly, if we don't stay conscious of the fact that desires are, they're insidious, they get us, they're related to the ego, and we can't get away from that because we have to have the ego by definition to be in this body. So we really need to be conscientious. We need to stay on top of it. We need to keep offering every desire that we have. Let me just read the secret first, and then I'll come back to this. So this is the 12th day of the Secrets of Prosperity, Swamiji's one of many secrets books that he's written, 26 of them. So this is the Secrets of Prosperity. And he says the secret of prosperity is not to fritter energy away with trivial desires. A leaky faucet, drop by drop, wastes many gallons. The secret of prosperity, obviously spiritual prosperity, is not to fritter away energy with trivial desires. A leaky faucet, drop by drop, wastes many gallons. And he doesn't just mean trivial, like a small desire is worse than a big desire. He means trivial means of the world, of the ego. He means don't let yourself think that by fulfilling egoic desires, and we have to practice and remember these things, or we won't. We'll forget. Even those of us who have been on this path for a long time, and probably many lifetimes, is the truth. But it's incredibly easy to get drawn in by the ego. Patanjali says that the vrittis, which are attachments and desires, so those whirlpools of energy in our astral spine, can also be neutralized by calming and retaining outward the exhalation of the breath. So what he's saying to us here, he's going to talk to us eventually, of course, Patanjali, Swamiji, Master, about meditation. But here's the thing. He's saying by the exhalation of the breath, this is how we calm the vrittis. And that may sound obvious. It may or it may not. Most people think that when you become breathless, which is the calming of the vrittis, or the ridding ourselves of every desire, most people think that you take an inhalation and you're up here at the point between the eyebrows, and it makes perfect sense. You would think that you become breathless and leave the body that way. But that's not what happens. What happens is when we become breathless at the very end of exhalation. And it's counterintuitive to the human mind. But why is it important? Because it's at the end of exhalation that we can rid ourselves. We could think of a desire. We could think of something that we're attached to. And if we want to let go of it, we need to think of letting go of it at the end of each breath. I was just telling some people before everybody got here, last night I spent the night in the hospital with our friend Biraj. He had his knee replaced yesterday, and I told him that I would stay with him all night just to make sure that he got through that first night. It actually was a joy for many reasons. So early this morning, when the physical therapist came, this is the day after having his knee replaced, a very painful procedure. And she walks in, and I mean, before I left at 10:30 this morning, they had him bending his knee in every direction, extension, flexion, all these different ways. It was painful. You could tell. I mean, they come in and they give you a big dose of pain medicine 45 minutes ahead of time. And then had him walking up and down the hall, and he did beautifully. This is not important to our class so much tonight, but he was such a trooper. It was really impressive. It changed my mind about ever needing to have a knee replacement, which I was not looking forward to. I can't say I'm looking forward to it, but I won't be as concerned about it as I would have been. But here's the thing. At one point when I was sitting there with him, I said to him, because the physical therapist said, yesterday your wife told you to use your breath. She said that, which was a great thing for Lahari to say, because we're bound to things like our fear of pain. You know, it doesn't sound the same as desire, but it's an attachment in the same way. So I said to him today, and forgive me for those of you who are not Kriya bonds, but Kriya is the type of meditation that we teach on this path. The Yogananda really came to teach, and that's a big part of why he came to the West, among other things. And it just has to do with controlling energy, because as we learn to control energy, we can learn to take charge of our relationship to the desires that we have. That's the truth. That's not so easy, because we think of how hard it is just to stay tuned for one breath. It's challenging at times. Sometimes you can do it for a few breaths or a few minutes, and then you find yourself doing whatever else you do with your mind sometimes. But I said to him, you know, that was great advice that Lahari gave you, but how about this? When the point of the exercise that would have you be in the most pain, sync that up with your exhalation. Not like what do most people do when they're in pain? They go, and they hold their breath and they clamp down. Everybody does it. Everybody when you're in pain. Everybody reflexively does it. But I said to him, let's try and use a Kriya breath. And when you know the pain's going to be the worst, make sure that you are exhaling. And he looked over at me after where that came from. It was a gift, not from me, right? But from Swamiji, our master, for him. He said to me, wow, that is so much less painful. And it's exactly that way with our desires as well. It is a way to let go of the desire instead of trying to think about it or rationalize. You can't, because you're already in your mind. We cannot let go of desires that way. And Swamiji said, don't fritter away your energy with little desires. And I want to find another quote of his here, but there's something I'll tell you in a minute. But rather sync it with what looks like breath, but what is really the flow of energy. Let each desire go with every exhalation, whatever it is, whether it's if in the moment you want food that you know you're not supposed to eat, whether it has to do with a deep desire for money. How do we take care of those things? The other day, somebody came to talk to me about their relationship to money. These are people who make an exorbitant amount of money every year, millions every year. And yet they find it very hard to give any money anywhere. And they're not from this area, so it doesn't matter who it is, but they are involved with Ananda. And they said it's embarrassing. We give so little. We're not even giving, they said, $100 a month. Now, there are people who give $10 a month. It can bring tears to my eyes because it means so much to them. But this person knew enough to know. And he said, can you help me? I know this is terrible for me. This is frittering away energy on little desires. In this case, the desire to amass great wealth, thinking that that's going to bring you peace of mind. The more money I have, the more power I have, though he would never use that word. But it is, as we spoke about it, what he was feeling. And I said to him, let's not talk about money. You will need to start giving a little more. You will. And it doesn't need to be to Ananda if you don't want it to be. You can give it to some charity that serves food to people. You can give it wherever you want to give it. Little bit. Give a little bit. Instead of $100 a month, give $200. I said, are you ever going to miss $200? He said, no. I said, let me ask you this. If you gave away $1,000, would you ever miss it? He said, no. I said, if you gave away $25,000, would you ever miss it? He said, honestly, I wouldn't. It would not have any effect on his life. He knew that, but he can't do it. So this is a strong desire for power, is really what, for safety is what it is. So I said to him, let's have you breathe. When you sit down to write a check, to give a little more and a little more, I want you to be practicing your breathing, the way we know to breathe. Let's have you let go of it that way, because you can't do it with your mind. You can't get over that attachment or these desires. Swamiji says in ecstasy, little desires, ecstasy, he's talking about spiritual ecstasy, of course. Little desires can be evaporated by intense inner joy. Strong desires, however, for money, sex, intoxicants, and even lesser desires for worldly power, fame, recognition, and success can only be worked out on the battlefield of the earth. So it's interesting, if we've accumulated these, if we have these very strong desires, Master's saying, you have to really be thoughtful about where and how you can let go of your desires. So we're not going to think our way through it. He told me whenever I think about it, he said, when I think about tithing, because think of it, you're making millions a year. That's a big tithe, 10% of that. I said, dear Lord, don't think about tithing. People who make a lot less haven't yet gotten comfortable with tithing. I said, let's just stretch it. Let's just write a check for $200 and exhale when you do that. And it was so relieving to him. He was so grateful because it was truth, because it has to be transformed. That's what has to happen. It cannot be rationalized. Like he said, my mind knows that it's silly. My mind even knows I can hear the words. All of this money is God's money. It's not even my money. He said, but that doesn't really mean anything to me. I said, of course it doesn't. You know, Master's saying you can never solve the problem at the level on which it was created. I wanted to look at these words. You know, when we were going through the Secrets of Emotional Healing class at the beginning of the pandemic, and many of you have heard me say this, I would never understand. Swamiji paired a song with every secret. Sometimes I'd be looking at it before class. I would say, why do you choose that song for that secret? It would make no sense. Then we would come up, we would meditate, I would hear the song, and all of a sudden it would come to me exactly why he chose that song as an antidote. So today, James and I were talking earlier, and I said, I said, obviously I haven't had a lot of time to sit with this because I was coming from the hospital. And I said, but I just don't know what the song is going to be tonight. And I didn't. I had no idea. Then I ran home for an hour to get dinner for my family. And I opened my computer, and it opened to I've passed my life as a stranger, Lord. Just fascinating to me. So then I read the words, and we're talking about the world not appearing what it is, that desires can take such a strong hold of our mind and of our being. But I'm not going to read you the whole song, but listen to this. I've passed my life as a stranger, Lord, roamed far in foreign lands, meaning taking human birth after human birth, foreign to the soul's true home. That's what Swamiji means by that line. Far, Lord, far, too far. Only he who knows he's far from home. Only he, Lord, understands. Only he who knows he's far from home feels the earth and understands. He's saying when that longing comes to go back and find our true spiritual home, our soul's home. This is Swamiji writing all about the soul. Then we realize that we're here as a human incarnation. It's foreign to our souls, not to the ego, but to the soul, that it's foreign. And he says, I'll just move on for sometimes a child laughed and I did pause and dreamed of joys at home. Joys, Lord, only a joy. For what joy is there without your smile, empty like the desert foam? So and I could just keep reading. Every verse is so beautiful, saying, don't fritter away your life with little desires. Don't, because then you wind up passing your life as a stranger. Every verse, he's saying there's only one true home for our soul. There's only one place where those desires can ever be satisfied. And it's not here. It's not out in the world. So, of course, I thought, just as I was listening to Dunbar sing this, I thought, of course this song came to me. I didn't know it until I came here. But just this way that Swamiji has, for those of you who have been coming to each of these classes. Every time at the beginning of the class. Oh, this is so weird. My computer's calling me. Not calling me, but somebody's calling me that came through on my computer, which it never does. This is such a beautiful song. How long must I be a wanderer, Lord? You know where I belong. You know, Lord, yes, you know. Home is where my Lord's sweet presence is. I've grown tired of strangers' songs. Home is where my Lord's sweet presence is. I've grown tired of strangers' songs. I mean, it's so beautiful with this secret, how in so many ways that Swamiji, or Master, can help us find our way through this. Master says, mankind has an infinite capacity for involving himself in delusion. And we know that. This is why we hear that it's taken us, what are we told, 10 million lives to get here. 10 million lives. An infinite capacity for involving himself in delusion. His ability to create ever more desires is phenomenal. And he's speaking to us. We're not safe from this. That's why it's so, of course, that's why you're all here. That's why I'm here. I mean, why did I decide that it would be a great idea to teach this book? Because these are so important for us. Because he says, as Yogananda put it, this is Swamiji who wrote this. He says, mankind has an infinite capacity for involving himself in delusion. His ability to create ever more desires is phenomenal. Yet the more one satisfies his desires, the less fulfillment he experiences. That's an amazing statement, really. And yet we see that so many times. Who was just saying to me, oh, no, I can't remember who it was, but just in the last day or two. So, because we're about to do this. This is that. I'm sorry, let me finish this sentence first. The more one satisfies his desires, the less fulfillment he experiences. As Yogananda put it, desires forever fed are never satisfied. That's a powerful phrase. So we were talking, it was you who was saying this to me. It was Kamala Devi. She's wondering, what did I say to her? But it was wisdom, so I'm going to repeat it. Tomorrow night, we're starting a series of outreach programs in this area because we've been doing so much of our outreach in the East Bay and in the South Bay. And, you know, and for many reasons, it's a wonderful work to do. It's always great to do outreach, but it has some little flaws in it, not the least of which is that people are all the way over in the East Bay then, and they don't want to come over. They're not going to come here for a Tuesday night class, you know, that starts. And I mean, they don't even always want to come on a Sunday. So the further away people are, the harder it is now that we're not doing everything online. But for many other reasons, I have been wanting it, and I think now a lot of people who are helping with this have been wanting to do outreach locally. So I was telling Kamala Devi this. We're starting it tomorrow night at Menlo Park Library, and I would say to all of you, we don't know if anybody's going to come. Outreach is challenging these days. We've put it up on social media. Who knows where people are who are reading that. We've put it on Nextdoor so that people can read it around here. We hung it on a few bulletin boards, these great flyers. Who knows? I mean, one or two people might come, or it might be just us. So I've been saying to a lot of people, please come if you can. 7 o'clock tomorrow night at the Menlo Park Library. If it's just us, we'll have great satsang. We'll have so much fun. But if 2 people come, If 2 people come and decide to take Raja Yoga, then next week we're doing another one. And if 2 more people come, and then the following week. So if we get 6 or 8 or 10 people to join a Raja Yoga course, if we can reach 6 or 8 or 10 people who are just hungry for these teachings, they didn't even know it, but they just walked into the library. What a joy that is. You know, you remember when Master was talking to that crowd of 5,000 people, right? And Dr. Lewis said to him, look at this is so great, 5,000 people. And Yogananda turned to him and said, Doctor, we'll be lucky if we see 5 of them. And you remember the story, that's exactly what happened. Just like the Bhagavad Gita says, out of 1,000, 1 will find me. So if 6 people come over the next few weeks, we'll be happy and we'll have a good time doing it. But what Kamala Devi said to me the other day, we were talking about it, she said, you know, this is so perfect. She said, because here we are reaching out to people. I think most of you know this is a pretty wealthy area by and large. I mean, it is Silicon Valley, even if it's Menlo Park, it's Silicon Valley. And as I said, you know, somebody can talk to me who's making millions a year. It's like a dream for most of us, but I mean, not a wishful dream, but it's like you can't wrap your mind around a kind of dream. But she said, if people come and they are some of the very wealthy, materially wealthy people, but they're looking for something because they already have everything. They have it. And yet they're aware of the fact, you know, it's like that joke, which I won't tell again now, but like, this isn't it, this isn't it. What is it? What are we looking for? So she said it's a perfect way to try and reach people. And so Master's saying, desires forever fed are never satisfied because every desire is about the same thing. Every desire. And Yogananda said it, this is our teacher, an avatar saying to us, the 2 things that everybody wants, what motivates every desire, every action, until we become conscious. And it is where a lot of us are. We're consciously trying to move beyond this. No small thing. Everybody wants to find happiness and avoid pain. So the idea came, let's call tomorrow night, the first one, how to be happy all the time. That draws people. People are intrigued by that. And particularly right now, with whichever side of this you're on, I'm not arguing for any side, but whichever side of this political insanity that you're on, whichever side of the war with Russia and Ukraine or Israel and the Palestinians, whichever side of it you're on, you're in pain. It doesn't matter. So for people to find happiness and avoid pain is not a small thing. And yet, as I started at the beginning, Yogananda tells us over and over, look it up yourselves, everything he says about desire goes back to lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, coming back in with desires. Whatever it is, if I have more money, I'll be happy. If I have the next child, I'll be happy. If I buy one more house, I'll be happy. If I don't have this cancer anymore, I'll be happy. It doesn't matter what you want to fill in the blank with. Desires forever fed are never satisfied except the desire to know God. That is the only thing. So I love the way Swamiji said that when he says, don't fritter away energy on small desires. But then he creates that image for us, a leaky faucet, drop by drop, wastes many gallons. And that's true. We all know that's true. I mean, literally we know because we've lived through, what's it called? Sorry. Where there's no water, I'm just losing a word. Drought. We've lived through so many years of drought where if there was a leaky faucet, if you had anything leaking outside, your neighbors would come out and they'd be knocking on the door. Then, Master says, desires are the greatest obstacle on the spiritual path. That's sobering, actually, just reading that simple phrase. I mean, we could sit and we can talk about why, and we all know all of this energy going out instead of in. But just think about it. It's not that we can't want anything, by the way. It's not that we can't. It's that as long as we believe that that's what will bring us happiness, we're in trouble. That's the problem with it. So when he says, desires are the greatest obstacle on the spiritual path, that's a sentence of his to take away and remind and read it and remind ourselves. This is Yogananda still. Do what you can within reason to remain healthy, to achieve the worldly success you need, but keep those efforts proportionate to the true long-range goal of life, which is to find God. To devote all your energy to fulfilling material desires. I don't think anyone in this room is doing it, but we're not totally safe. We're not free until we're free. That's why we're here. I know that's why we're here. He says to devote your energy to fulfilling material desires, as so many people do, Master, even in the name of spirituality, by the way, distorts their values and deprives them of the time they need for more important things. You know, most of you know that I've practiced medicine for many years, and I did okay financially. I never became a wealthy woman. I joked for years, but it's no joke. It's the truth. Every time I would get some money, somebody I knew and loved needed it more than I did. It's just been a story in my life. Now it feels wonderful, but people used to tease me about it and joke. But also I was an internist, a medical doctor. Medical doctors don't make that much money. We did fine. I've never, as an adult, had to worry about food or a roof over my head, but, you know, neither was I out there making a lot of money. But just about the time that I started thinking that maybe I should not practice medicine anymore, because some of you know for many years I served here full-time and I practiced medicine full-time. And I didn't sleep. I mean, it's really what I was doing, full-time medical practice and coming here and serving very full-time. Well, you can only sustain that for so long, not because there's not enough energy in the world, but because it's not really what the Master's one of us. But right when that started coming to me, Shanti, let go of it. Let go of it. You've had this beautiful career. I started getting offers for jobs that were incredibly lucrative, really lucrative. I mean, for a medical doctor, you know, not for a cardiac surgeon maybe, certainly not for techie people, but for doctors, you know. So people would come and say, come on, just come and work with us for 2 years. We'll give you $400,000 a year. That was a lot of money to me. And then when you would say no, they would say, okay, will you do it for $500 a year? I'm not kidding you. Because of course they knew how much experience I had and who I was medically. But it's very tricky because what did I say to myself? I said, Shanti, if you do this, look at how much money you'll have to give to Ananda. It was a trap. It was really a trap. And so where Master says, I'm sorry, I just want to find this, as so many people do, even in the name of spirituality, distorts their values and deprives them of the time they need for more important things. I didn't even think of that. That's true, what I'm telling you. Happened about 3 times. But when I was just reading that line to you, I thought, that happened to me. I was offered all of that money. And then you say, well, I could do it for 1 year, and I could give 400 of the 500 to Ananda. I don't need that much money. I mean, $100,000 a year was a lot of money to me. I could certainly give 400. But where would my meditation have been? Where would anything have been? But that constant seduction of the ego and of this desire. And I really see where Master's coming from when he writes that. When you pray to God, be completely sincere with him. If your heart is restless with desires, say to him, Lord, I have these desires, but I want you more than anything else. Help me to dissolve every limitation in your great ocean of peace. Because if we're honest, this has to be the case because we're all still in these bodies. If we're honest, of course we still have desires. Of course, if we're blessed, if we have God's grace, we use those desires, we turn them on their head, and we use them to get closer to God. We just do. We find ways to, instead of saying, please change that person, they're bothering me, they're hurting me, they're limiting me. I could be so much happier if I had a partner who is deeply on the path. I could be so much happier. I mean, a perfectly reasonable thing to say. But what if we say, you've all heard me say this, but I could use a lot of examples. I tend to keep them close to home, so I'm talking about myself and not anybody else. What if we say, help me to see you always in the person who's not on the path? Then wouldn't we almost rather have that person who's not in the path? So all the time in front of us, God, 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 God. Doesn't mean you have to marry people who aren't on the path. That's not the point. The point is the desire for things to be different, thinking you'll be happier, as opposed to help me to dissolve every limitation in your great ocean of peace. Let me just see if there's 1 or 2 more things. Then I want to open it for discussion because so this is, I just said this, but because he says everything so much more beautifully than I ever could. Again, this is all Yogananda who's speaking. So this is a paraphrase, first of all, on that saying in the Gita that Rita and I were just talking about a few classes ago because it had just come up. A created desire, a created want becomes an ongoing desire through habit. If a desire finds no prospect of immediate fulfillment, pain arises. The more desires we harbor, the greater the possibility of pain, because the more desires we have, the more difficult it is to fulfill them. But then he asks us, why do we desire and long for things? Why do we yearn for states of mind and even soul qualities and attainments? The Master says it's because we remember. This is beautiful also to have this thought. We remember that we were perfect once and we yearn for that long-lost perfection. We are all children of God. And then he says more about it, but let me just stop here and ask for comments, questions, stories of your own.
I was wondering if you can speak a little bit more about when you're trying to when you make a decision to do something that, as you described, ending your career, well, not your career, but your closing your practice so you can have more time to serve, and then now you started to get all these tests. If you could speak a little bit more to that, because I feel that that happens so often whenever you make a decision to take a positive step forward that's going to actually deepen your relationship to God. It's almost as if boom, 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 now you're getting, in some ways, spiritually attacked.
Yeah, you get pulled out. But you know, I mean, we've talked about this so much, and it's just always true, because truth is eternal, that it is how we either lapse back into ego, in which case, I mean, as Master and Swamiji say it, not facetiously, you don't have to get it now. You can, gotta wait. You know, God means that state of soul perfection. It's always there waiting for us. But it's like working out at the gym. You know, if as soon as the weights, you go from 10-pound weights to 15-pound weights, and it hurts. You feel that burn in your muscle. You say, I'm not doing this. And you go back to 10-pound weights. That's good. It's good that you're there doing weights, but you will not get stronger that way, or not nearly as strong as quickly. So I don't see that ever anymore. And I really mean it. I'll share another personal story with you, because I know my personal stories, you can all relate to them. There's something just like what you're doing in your own life. But I feel it's our soul's deep longing and what we call God, which is really, what is it? That state of super consciousness that's beyond all of what we see and know here, whether it's our physical bodies, whether it's more money, whether it's whatever you think you want, that state, really in the deepest place, and this is what I just read, it's our soul's remembering that's there. So we are being given the perfect opportunity to keep moving towards it, even though it's hard work. It's like seeing, you know, a top of a mountain or a goal when you're climbing, and you know it's going to be spectacular if you reach the top. You also know it's hard. It's very hard, and the closer you get to the top of the mountain, and this is true, what happens? It's steeper, usually. There's more scree, which means little pieces of rock and dirt that you can take a step and slide back down. It's more frightening. You can lose your footing. For anybody in this room who's ever made it to the top of some big mountain, not mountain climbing, but hiking, you know this, but it's exhilarating when you get there. You literally feel closer to God. You literally do when you're up in these, you know, when you're up in these incredible mountains. Why are so many great temples built there? So I think we will be tempted, because that is the role of ego, of Satan, of desire. But it doesn't mean that we ever have to succumb to it. And the other tricky, really tricky thing is when something happens that looks in the world mean or unfair or aggressive. And in the world, it is. It actually is. People do mistreat us. People do get jealous and competitive and misbehave, and they can sling a lot of that at us. If that's what we see, and it is so tempting, that's what the ego wants. What about me? How could you do that to me? Why would you treat me that way? Why? If we succumb to it, that's where we are. We see that in the world. But if we say to ourselves, this is just the next opportunity for me to really say what's trying to happen here. What is actually trying to happen here? You know, this is a silly example, but it's an example. Many of you know, because you're on our group mailing list, the day that the Microsoft glitch happened, which just stopped the whole world, probably most of you know. These bizarre things started happening in front of my eyes on my computer. So I have a whole folder that I keep right next to my email called receipts. And I have tax receipts, and you know, you return something at Amazon, you're waiting to see it credited back to your account, whatever it is. I had about, because I hadn't cleaned it out for a while, maybe 200 things in there. That folder just disappeared. I went to reach for it in a moment, it was gone. 3 other folders, boom, 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 gone. Then what happens? This is over the course of less than an hour. Every email in my inbox, now we all do computers different. For me, this is thousands of emails that I'm talking about. Disappear, they're gone. I could not find them anywhere on my computer. By the way, to this day, over half of them are gone. Everything that was through a Gmail account, we've been able to recover. But the way we recovered it was to get the 50 meaningful emails. Thousands had to be re-downloaded onto my computer. This has really been a thing. Anyway, it's a problem for me, as you all know. I'm dealing with people a lot around the world. People, you know, if Rita writes me an email and I don't respond, she'll write to me and say, hey, did you get the email? But any of you who I don't communicate with very much, if Ellen wrote me an email, believe me, not because I don't care about Ellen, I care about her a great deal, but we don't exchange that many emails. I would never be able to recreate, Ellen sent me an email, this one sent me an email, Sambhavich just sent me an email. We've never sent each other. So I'm thinking, who are all of those people? And I felt like they're gonna think I'm ignoring them. This is what first, finally, because I've been thinking about shifts that I could see coming in my life. I've been thinking about it anyway, but I've been thinking about it. Suddenly, everything that guides my life, literally, any of you who are on your computer all the time now, gone, it's gone. So I never got upset. Somehow, after I called Barry into the room, I said, you won't believe this. My whole computer is disappearing, and it was just like that. It was weird. And then the thought came, you know, maybe you're not supposed to be doing all that anymore. Maybe it's just being taken away for a reason. Total peace and total calm. I've never looked back. So if you've written me and I haven't gotten back to you, but I mean, and I absolutely believe that's the truth. It is one of the ways that this absurdly packed, overly full for a 77-year-old woman who is also, as you know, pretty much a full-time caregiver at home and, you know, everything else that I do. I'm saying, are you still supposed to be moving like this, bum, 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 all the time? No, maybe you're not. Look at that. They just took all of your email away from you. Okay, I guess I can't do that anymore. Now, is that true? I don't know. But what I do know, I don't know if Master went into my email and just started making hodgepodge of it. I do use Microsoft. I use, what's the name of my email thing? Outlook. So I thought, maybe it just came to mess with my computer. But whatever it was, with right attitude, the right message came. And I think if we hold, the more we can hold things like that. And it's not always, oh, this is supposed to be. Sometimes the message is, no, you find your inner strength and you go for this. I mean, so there's no one right answer, except everything happens for a reason. Everything. Everything. Whether it's computer-based or a partner of 38 years who you really love, but who is nowhere near a spiritual path. So you're here, you're here, you're here. Heart's always open, always. God in front of me, God. It doesn't matter what it is. It's what we do with it. That was a long answer, but I think it was an important,
Talked about people who have a lot of money but very scared to give. Maybe their habits of saving money from all fronts and also the insecurity looming across their mind. So get that practice of giving a little bit more. This is also, please extend that to other habits, same forms.
that's right. I do feel that because, of course, what was the point of my saying to him, this is some old karma? Of course it's old karma. Everything's karma. But if we look at what happened to Judas, I mean, really, what a perfect example. But do you know, when Judas came back, many of you know this story, of course, because Yogananda said it, and he came back in a life within the last 100 years. And he still had a little bit of his money stuff. And some people in, was it Ramakrishna? Who was his guru? Were teasing him. And Ramakrishna said, don't tease him. But because it was so deep and painful in him. I mean, talk about karma, you know, trading in Christ himself. So, but it doesn't help us to say, get over it. But what I did say to him that I think is very meaningful, no matter what the situation, is this. If you start giving a little bit and feel, because this is a very, very good man, and interestingly, a very generous man, a generous soul. I know him well. You start giving just a little more, your heart will open. You won't have to think your way there. It will not be the hurdle that you think it is. It's not like, oh my God, how am I going to get over this? Love. Love is the answer. Opening your heart. Why did Sri Yukteswar say to us? That was not a man who minced words or wanted to use a lot of extra words. You know, you cannot put one foot in front of the other on the spiritual path until you've realized the natural love of the heart. Well, we all know what happens when we start giving, you know. And this is a good man. I'm not saying Al Capone would have thought it was great. You know, we're not talking about gangsters or horrible people who would really believe that they found joy by killing you. That's not a disguise. Just give a little bit. You won't have to think it. You know, there was a man who was in a class recently. He asked this very good question. He's an Indian man. And he said, I grew up with all of these bhajan and chants and the Gita readings and Mahabharata in my mother tongue. And he said, I love hearing it like that. And he was saying, he said, so it's hard for me, he's taking some classes with us, to tune into Yogananda in English. Like he knows Yogananda's greatness happened. So first I said to him, you know, you won't believe this because I'm very white. I mean, look at me, I'm like pure white head to toe. But I said to him, I have spent an enormous amount of time in India, which is true, as you all know. I went there for years, months out of every year with Sant Keshavadas. Now I go, and I said, and I love Indian bhajan. I love it. They had to restrict me when I first came onto this path. Raghu, some of you knew, some of you didn't. He used to say to me, don't buy any of those instruments. You're not going to be allowed to use them here. We don't chant like that. You know, not Master's way or Swamiji's way. I said, oh, I miss it so much sometimes. So there's nothing like being along the banks of the Ganges and listening to a great Indian bhajan, but kirtan. But I said, here's the real answer. You're not yet deeply attuned to Master, to Yogananda. As you deepen your attunement, as you feel that love between you, if he's your guru, if it's not him, whoever it is, you won't be thinking in languages. You'll be thinking in the heart's love. Don't fret about this at all. It's not, your mind will not figure it out. In your mind, you'll always miss that language. In your heart, you'll feel pure love. You won't miss it. And that's the truth. So the answer about any of our karmas is as we encourage ourselves to behave ourselves. Another, what's the word I want? Another bit of guidance, but it wasn't just guidance, it was a dictum from Sri Yukteswar. Learn to behave yourself. What did that mean? He meant give a little more, do a little more, love a little more, see God in everyone. That's what he meant. As we just practice doing that, you know, we practice when it's easy. We don't try and practice with a parent who's been abusive or our partner who we're fighting with in the moment, or we practice when some stranger cuts us off on the road. And instead of going, we go, it's okay, I forgive you. I know, you're in a hurry. Whatever it is, it's easier. Never going to see the person again. Not the people you live with at the hardest tests can be our partners and children and parents, and the closer we are. And in our spiritual family, because this is a family. So it's because we're changing our very vibration. We're not trying to solve the problem. We're not trying, I've got to get rid of that desire. I've got to get rid of that desire. We don't do that. We love God more and more and more. And then the desire becomes more and more and more to feel the love of God in our hearts. It happens that way. That's truth. I can't tell you I've perfected it. You all know me. Obviously, I haven't. But I know it to be the only true way. So, anybody else? Kamala Devi.
The question, the reading from the Secrets of Prosperity is put in more of like a negative way, not a negative connotation, but just don't fritter away. What would be the opposite of that reading?
This is like the difference between the yamas and niyamas. I mean, there is as much value because in essence, what they're saying is really what the yamas say, right? I mean, the yamas say practice non-violence because if you practice, I mean, I'm going to try and answer your question, but this is a big part of the answer because it's pure wisdom. Every secret of his is like this. I mean, in every secrets book, it's so profound, it's hard to, because I've said this to this class, but you haven't been here, Sambhava, but if we're not careful, we can read that and we think, oh, I know that. If we all knew it, we wouldn't be here. I mean, we wouldn't be here in these bodies. But I think a large part of what Swamiji says, particularly in this secrets book, it's different. The class we did last with Secrets of Emotional Healing was different. But in this secrets book, it's often, don't do that, but it's in that consciousness of the yamas. If you can quit doing this, you will find that you are, that your true desire is only to know and love God. If you can quit frittering away your desires, then you will. So, and I think the positive side of that is this practice of the presence of God. But in a way, we can say that. That is the truth. But that is so hard. It's like, what is that? And then I could go on and say practicing the presence of God means showing up here for a class. It means satsang. It means chanting. It means meditating more than anything is what it means. But I think what Swamiji's done here in this book is, and again, I'll say it to you because it's important, people have heard me, every single secret, everyone so far, holds a seed thought for the entire spiritual path. Well, I have enough notes here that we could do class after class after class on this. It's like concentric circles of spiritual awareness. That's what Swamiji's done. It's his genius. But I think it's what he's doing is showing us in each secret, if you let this go, you'll be perfect. You are perfect. You are a perfect manifestation of divine energy. So the secret, last 2 weeks ago we did, the secret is to break the hypnosis of self-limitation. He doesn't just say to us, you're already God, you're already in everything, because we can't absorb that. But it goes on, there's 2 more sentences in that last secret, it was longer. But to break the hypnosis of self-limitation. And again, we could come in here and say, of course, that's what we're doing. That's what every Gita reading's about, every Bible reading. When do we ever hear anything new, is the truth. But new spins, new stories, new whatever comes up. And we go home and we remember that. So I think it's too hard to just say, if you perfect nonviolence, you too could go up and hug a tiger. It's different than to say, go hug a tiger. Oh, you're a pure manifestation of God. Just go and it'll purr at you like a little pussycat. Of course, we all know that Yogananda did that. But we can't fathom it. So I think we're being given ways in. That is actually a very good question. But that is why there are both yamas and niyamas. I mean, because they take the opposite view of that, you know. So the niyamas will say, you have to practice cleanliness, because cleanliness is second to godliness. And it is. Cleanliness, it's a cleansing of the soul in a way. On the other hand, he would say, if you're perfectly clean and ordered, you will feel the perfection of God. It's just, yeah. Did you want to say something?
So recently I was talking with a friend about a lifelong wish, desire, hope, expectation that I had with someone. And that it never was fulfilled, and it has now just come more to the forefront in my life. And I've tried everything I can think of, you know, from long before I was on the spiritual path. I mean, I think I started working with this when I was like 17, you know, and all the way through. And so she said, one of the things that we can do is offer our willingness to change up to God. And so I tried this because it had never occurred to me. I've never tried it before. And so the first question I had to ask was, do I actually want to be rid of this desire?
It's a good question.
And yes, I do. That means letting go of a whole bunch of things, right? But yes, I do, because I feel how it's kept me in this cage, and it's limiting. And it just creates suffering, not only for me, but for that person. And I think it also ripples out to others, in ways I'm not seeing. But so anyway, I sincerely just said, a really strong prayer, and I just said, I absolutely am willing to change. And, if you can do that for me, I'm ready. And then very soon, like within that 24-hour period, a real answer came. And a real shift and I feel the freedom in it, I feel the healing in it. It's just miraculous. And the only thing it was just saying, there's nothing left I can do. I just have to give it to you. And I really do want to be free. And then I started thinking about other things, other desire type things that feel limiting, and really thinking about, do I want to let this go? And so I think this is a really incredibly wise thing that she said, and I see that it works.
It's such an important thing that you're saying, and I know you've heard me say some of this, but that's so wonderful that you're bringing it up. I used to say to people in my medical practice, not infrequently, do you really want to be well? And you've heard me say they would get very angry with me. Of course I want to be well. I said, think about it. Because when you're willing to be well, but it means letting go of something. It means letting go of, in your case, we could list a lot of things. Most importantly, your belief that you knew how it was supposed to be, which is subtle and difficult. But for people when they're sick, people have no idea how the subtlety of the way that we are attached, not everybody, but many people, to that sickness, the way it gives us, lets us off hooks. There's so many things. It seals relationships. I remember once saying to a man who came to see me, I also saw his wife, do you actually want to be well? He said to me, you asked me that last month, and I told you yes. He said, but the truth is, I don't. And I said, why not? He said, if I get well, my marriage will fall apart. And it was true. I could see that. So I'm just saying what you're talking about is that willingness to change. Willingness, and not just change, but to give it to God, which is a step further. I really appreciate you sharing that. It's amazing. So the miracle, it reminds me of when Thich Nhat Hanh said, miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong. Meaning like this, had we been able to give it over to God right away, it wouldn't even look so miraculous. But because since you're 17, you're holding on to how you wanted that to be, suddenly it's like, my God, I'm free of this after however many years, I won't even ask, but it's a while. And Yeah, it's a beautiful story. How subtle it is that we hold on to, wanting things to be as we see them, as we think they're supposed to be. Yeah, very briefly, I'll share one more story along those lines, then we'll end. I was up at the village during SRW, and somebody came to me, asked me to go for a walk, and they said, I just need to share this with somebody. I said, okay. No, I mean, I haven't shared this with anybody for years, and it's killing me, and I don't know what to do, and I've been holding on to it. And I said, well, you know, you can tell me anything, which was the truth. And they said to me, in a whisper, we're out, and like there's nobody anywhere near me. And the person says, I have had a crush on this person, somebody else, for years. And I had to not giggle, you know, I mean, because it was so serious. But it was, in a way, like a version of what you're talking about. So I share it just because it's another miracle. And I said to them, do you want to be over it? I do. It's wrong. I can't. The other person wasn't married. It's not anything like that. Why they saw this as being so wrong, I could never figure out. But, you know, I don't understand a lot of my own neuroses, never mind somebody else's. But then I said to them, but you're never going to approach them, right? Oh, no, I would never do that. So you're never going to go anywhere with this, right? No, never going to. So you think you're just going to keep suffering? Probably. I said, do you think that you could shift and hold that person as a very dear friend? And it was like, I'm not comparing it to you because who knows, but suddenly and in an instant, that transformation of energy happens. And it just goes from, yes, of course, that's what this is. And that was it, years of holding on to it. So, first of all, good for you for talking about it with somebody and for asking. It takes a lot of courage. And then to hear it and let it in like you did. I mean, it's so important what you're talking about. Do you want to change? Do I? Yeah, thank you. All right, friends, so much for ending early tonight. We did not, but here we are. Yeah, thank you all for being here.